Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery.
Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome again to our weekly YouTube session. And if you are already not familiar with us, I'm Teng Boo from Capital Dynamics. And Capital Dynamics is Asia's first global fund manager with presence in Shanghai, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur of course, Singapore, and not forgetting Sydney. So you know that our YouTube sessions have covered all kinds of topics, from population problems to the Fukushima radioactive water discharge, to the fact that you shouldn't be drinking water from plastic bottles because the plastic bottles contain nanoplastic particles. So all kinds of topics. Today, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Stay with us, and I will try to make sure that my session is not as long as 45 minutes. It's about from Gen Z to boomers, whether boomer 1, boomer 2, what we can learn from Morris Chang of TSMC, from Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken, from Faxian. Faxian, I guess most of you wouldn't have heard of him. Never mind, stay with us, and then we will explore things, issues, questions that most of you probably do not think about, or questions that you only think about when you are maybe about to knock out forever. In my interaction with people, I come across people of all ages, young, old. Last week I was in 2 career fairs, one in Monash U, and the other one was in a University of Science Malaysia, that is a public university in North Malaysia. I attended the career fairs there, and of course the applicants are all students, people 19, 20, 21, and then tomorrow, or rather in the coming week, we're going to have our fun gatherings where a lot of our clients are the elderly people. So I have a chance to observe people across all ages, and there's one particular observation that I've made, that I've noticed about people, is that whether they are young or old, they have two focus. One, money. The other one is about retiring or retirement. So I find that interesting, because I think a lot of the focus of these people on money and retirement is rather misguided. It's something that probably they should change their questions, the direction of their questions, so that they can have a life that's more meaningful and more fulfilling. So we have the photograph of Morris Chang, right? He's 90 plus years old now, and everybody know Morris Chang because of TSMC. TSMC is probably the most important semiconductor company in the entire world. And most people know that Morris Chang founded TSMC. But most people do not know that Morris Chang founded TSMC when he was about 55, 56 years old. Don't you think 55, 56 is the age where you're about to retire, where you're thinking about retiring? But here is this guy who probably changed a lot of things in Asia Pacific. At 55, 56, he was about to embark on a journey that he doesn't know where it's going to lead him to. It's not that 55, 56, he was tasting immeasurable success. No. At 55, 56, he was starting on an unknown journey. And for those of you who are familiar and read the history of TSMC, you will know that in the earlier years, it was difficult, very difficult, because he did it in Taiwan. And of course, the Taiwanese government supported him. But even then, there were tremendous challenges. Success only came much later. And Morris Chang went back to Taiwan because, well, he was with, he studied in the US, and he was with Texas Instruments in America, and he knew that in Texas Instruments, in those times, he was already reaching his very peak. There was a glass ceiling in America. So he left Texas Instruments and went back to Taiwan. And like we said, the rest is history. So that is Morris Chang. Then our good friend, Colonel Sanders. He founded Kentucky Fried Chicken at the ripe old age of 62. At an age where most of us are already fried with too much work, about to retire. But he started, and then of course, you know, Kentucky Fried Chicken became a global success based on the franchise of the so-called secret recipe of Colonel Sanders. Here again, as somebody, of course, Colonel Sanders had a very twisted career path. He did all kinds of things before he finally began his franchise journey. But again, like Morris Chang, at 62 years old, he had no idea what his journey was going to take him. Next would be Faxian, the person that most of you, if you don't do a Google search, wouldn't know who on earth this person is. Well, he's died a long time ago. He's died about 1,600 years ago. And he was perhaps the first of the Chinese Buddhist monks to do pilgrimage from China to India. Now, when you say pilgrimage, it's not like when you do a Hajj now, you know, you go to KLIA, go to the international airport, take a nice plane, about 10 hours later you reach Mecca, you know, very comfortable. In his case, he has to go through, well, he was doing his pilgrimage on foot. This was 1,600 years ago, right? And at the time when he started his pilgrimage, he was 62 years old. For those of you who are young, if your parents are in the 50s and 60s, your parents will be telling you, you know, I want to retire, blah, 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 and so on and so forth, right? Or those of you who are already in your 50s or 60s, you will also be thinking about retiring if you have not retired by now. But here is a Buddhist monk, right, who started on a pilgrimage. He did not have GPS, no compass, no smartphone, no satellite, and walked physically all the way from the western part of China to the Gobi Desert, down to the Central Asia, down to Afghanistan and to India. Why what was he trying to do? He was not starting a franchise, not like Colonel Sanders. He was not about to start the semiconductor company in Taiwan. His journey had nothing to do with money. He left China to go to India because he wanted to have a complete set of the Buddhist sutras. And he wanted to translate them and bring all of them back to China. Why? Because at that time, when he left China at 399 CE, or Common Era, China was in a lot of civil strife and fighting. This was 100 years plus after the fall of the Han Dynasty. So even though China had Confucianism at that time, that didn't help China to have a peaceful, prosperous society. And at that time, India was seen as an advanced society, stable society, happy society. And the one thing that contributed to India reaching that state was Buddhism. So this Faxian heard about this, and he decided that he had to go, because at that time knowledge of Buddhism in China was not complete, was not as widespread. So he says, look, I got to go there, get the sutras, the complete sutras, bring them back, translate and bring them back and spread Buddhism in China. By the time he went back to China, it was 15 years later. He was about 76, 77 years old. Let's take a look at the map of his journey. If you look at this map, you can see, I hope you can see because it's a bit blur. You can see Chang'an. Chang'an is the old name for Xi'an, and then Lanzhou, Donghuan, and then went to Khotan, and towards the west, on my left hand side, there will be Peshawar, which is closer to Afghanistan, and then all the way down to India, all the way down to Sri Lanka. And then from there, by sea, he went back to China by sea through Palembang in Indonesia. 62 years old. He started his pilgrimage with, I think, 10 to 20 people were with him. By the time he was in India, he was the only one left. Maybe can we take a look at the photos of the Pamir Mountains? This is snow-covered. These are very high mountains, always snow-covered. And our good friend Faxian had to trek on foot across such mountains. On the right is the desert in Western China, which is, now we have heat wave in many Asian countries. The desert was hotter than the heat wave. We look at Deng Xiaoping. I guess most people would know who he is. And he only got to become the supreme leader of China at about 74. When Mao Zedong died in 1976, then only he became the supreme leader. And of course, that was the beginning of Deng Xiaoping's journey to transform China from a poor, backward country into a prosperous, advanced country. At the time of 74, I'm already 70 years old. Can you imagine 4 years from now, let's say the equivalent, I'm asked to transform, say, a country, say for example like Malaysia. Gosh. And let's see the success that Deng Xiaoping achieved for China. From the left is 1980, this is the GDP of China, about 1978 to 2021. Right? It has grown multiple times. And I guess without Deng Xiaoping's socio-economic policy, his socialism with Chinese characteristics, maybe China would have progressed at a much slower pace. But the key thing is, he started his journey at 74. And throughout his career, his work with the Communist Party of China, he was promoted many times, he was demoted many times, he was accused of a capitalist raider during the Cultural Revolution and so on. So there were a lot of backward, forward movement until 74, when finally Deng Xiaoping is able to start his journey of developing China. What about our good friend Chairman Mao? The PRC, People's Republic of China, was officially proclaimed in 1949. At that time, Chairman Mao was already 56 years old. Now, if you look at it, you can't see how difficult the journey was when he started in 1949. China was really, really poor because of the 100 years of humiliation, starting from 1839, when China had the first loss out in the First Opium War, and then and so on and so forth, and all the turmoil, and the whole country was nearly broken up. The Western imperial powers carved out China, Japan invaded China, killed the people brutally, and this ancient civilization was completely humiliated. So from a situation where the whole country was already on the verge of breaking up, came Mao Zedong at the age of 56 to start another miraculous journey. At an age where most of us will say, I want to retire. Right? I just spoke to some of my staff and they say, yeah, I want money and I want to retire. But at 56, gosh, that's incredible. I mean, just to think about it makes me inspired and tired at the same time because of the journey, the difficult journey that they undertook. Whether it's Chairman Mao, whether it's Deng Xiaoping, whether it is Maurice Chang, whether it's Colonel Sanders. And for those of you who want to retire at 55, 55, 60, that kind of age, think about this. We know that Warren Buffett is one of the richest men on this planet, right? Billions and tens of billions of US dollars his wealth. He did not become a billionaire until when he was 56 years old. When he was 40 something, when he was 44, 47 years old, he had a lot less money then. So had he retired when he was 55, 56, he'll be rich, but only a billionaire. As compared with now, his worth possibly, I don't know. Their wealth keeps changing so fast, maybe 100 billion US dollars. So why didn't he retire at 55, 56? Which brings us to this next two person, Mark Zuckerberg, whom you know, the founder, one of the founders of Facebook. But did you know? I mean, of course, he's another filthy rich person, right? It's interesting, when you describe people who are really rich, you call them filthy rich. There must be a reason why they're called filthy rich, right? Anyway, in 2006, when Facebook was just 2 years old, and Zuckerberg was only 22, still an undergraduate, Yahoo offered to buy over Facebook for $1 billion US dollars. That is a lot. If somebody were to offer me to buy Capital Dynamics for $1 billion US dollars, I say, please take it. Anyway, here's this 22-year-old guy. Maybe he didn't know how to count, 1 billion, how much 1 billion is. He turned down the offer. And that was 2006. This is 2024, so 18 years later. You know the rest of the story, right? Facebook or Meta now is one of the most successful social media company there is. And of course, he's one of the richest men in the world. Let's learn from another person, Elon Musk. Most of you would have known Elon Musk through Tesla or SpaceX. I mean, he's another filthy rich billionaire. But how many of you know that in 1999, when Elon Musk was only 28 years old, 28, you know, an age where if you're taking a PhD, you wouldn't have finished your PhD yet, right? He sold his earlier company, Zip2, for 300 over million US dollars. He could have retired and say, whoa, let me travel all over the world, let me go and see all the tourist sites, let me play golf every day. No. After that, he started PayPal. Of course, he subsequently sold PayPal, but for a much smaller amount. But what is more interesting is, in that 1999, when he was 28 years old, or 2000 when he was 29 years old, when he had all the material wealth, he went on another inspiring journey of starting SpaceX, Tesla, and now OpenAI. So I guess the question that we want to ask is, why? I mean, these are people who achieve huge material wealth, huge financial success at a very young age. Why didn't they retire? You know, Elon Musk, despite the fact that he's so filthy rich, he works damn hard. He works harder than almost every young person that I know of. He's famous for sleeping in the office. Of course, I also did the same thing. I also slept in my office, but of course I'm not so famous, unfortunately. So the question is, why aren't they money focused? Why aren't they retirement focused? I think that's a very important question that all of us must ask, because it brings us to the key question. What is the purpose in living? It's different from what is the purpose of life. What is the purpose in living is an active word, living. So what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve by continuing to live? Because if you want to retire at 55, 60, then why continue to live? You've already reached whatever it is that you want. You have raised your children or whatever it is, you have financed everything. That's the end of it. You might as well call it quits forever. So the key point is, the purpose in living has got to do with more than just money. It has got to do with more than just retirement. Whether it is to benefit society, to do good for society, whether it's for your personal gratification, your personal fulfillment, I think you got to really ask yourself, what is my purpose in living? I've always said, when people ask me, my answer has always been this, very simple answer. I will know my purpose in life about 1 minute just before I die. I said, if in the last 60 seconds before I really knock out, I'm able to answer myself that I have lived a life without regrets, I think I'll be very happy. Okay, today's topic is different. It's nothing to do with US population and China's population. It's something that I think many of us have forgotten to think about. And I think there are a lot of great lessons to learn from Maurice Chang, Faxian. I mean, Faxian really is really inspiring, because to be able to walk from Western China down all the way to Sri Lanka 1,600 years ago, that really boggles me. And I get inspiration from things like that. So I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you find it useful, and please share, please like, please comment, and subscribe to Capital Dynamics YouTube channel. Thank you, and I'll see you again next week.